Okay, I think that's done. Okay, yeah.
We're
Cool.
live.
We are live with the new
You're
StreamYard
Live.
software. YouTube tried to put us down, but we rose again. Stronger, harder than before.
I was talking with someone about this recently, and I said, I think they just want YouTube/Google just wants to make all the money with as little effort as possible. And if they don't have to maintain all that stuff for the Hangouts, and they can still get all the content, then
You didn't have to. You just turned the speaker off.
Oh,
Jesus Christ!
we're live.
We're live, Phil.
So,
Well, it's not even 3 o'clock yet.
we start a little before. He starts it live, generally like 5 minutes before.
Ooh, we have one live viewer.
Oh,
Ooh, look at you go.
oh boy!
We've made it.
I don't care. I'll post it as is anyway.
You post what as is?
Nothing. The show.
What
Post
show?
what it is.
We just, we're not going to swear at all and stuff, so.
Okay.
Right.
Move forward as a team. It's 3 o'clock now, so do you want to just start it?
Thank you.
Sure, let's do it.
Let's do it. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's edition of the Squatchable Podcast, where we take a look at the week in Bigfoot news. Joining me, as always, from the 14 Slip, Chris York. Chris, how are you?
Absolutely wonderful.
He's fine. And joining us, well, some say that his beard can be seen in all 8 dimensions. All I know for sure is I call him Phil Pulling. Phil, welcome to the show.
Oh, hello.
There's 8?
There is now.
There are 8 now, yeah.
Yeah.
We're going with 8. And if you enjoy Power Breakdown or the 40 Slip, you may enjoy the badly drawn misadventures of 2 Bigfoot and on over to Bigfooting with Keith and Colin on Facebook. I said there wouldn't be any cartoons last week. I lied. I got struck with a wave of inspiration. And I don't know what's happening next week, but something will be happening. I promise you that. Without further ado, I am your host, Richard Allen, and let's just jump into it. Our first story comes from EDP24.com. It is about the British Bigfoot, or the Woodroose. A subject I'm not 100% a fan of, but still, it's Bigfoot news and not blocked by the EU, so we can talk about it. Yay! The Woodroose, or Wild Man of the Woods, is a mythical figure that first appeared in medieval Europe. Covered from head to toe in thick hair and carrying a club, the curious creatures began to appear in English churches around the 12th century, carved into fonts, spandrels, and roof bosses in precisely the same place where you'd expect to find their close relative, the Green Man. Although terrifying in appearance, the Woodroose is often seen fighting lions or dragons, both of which were considered a threat to humans, and it is widely believed that the Woodroose would scare away evil spirits. This did not, however, prevent them from also becoming like medieval boogeyman, who could be used as imaginary behavior monitors for wayward children. In art depictions, the Woodroose club sometimes included a child tied to it. Lovely. And children have every right to have nightmares about the Woodrooses. According to some legends, they had superhuman strength, were deaf to the word of God, and some would think nothing of snatching a child and eating them. Adults had to be on their guard too. Male Woodrooses were said to have abducted human women due to their insatiable appetite for the opposite sex, while their female counterparts, far rarer to see in carvings and interpretations, although there is one shown on the font of St. Catherine's Church in Ludham, was said to have been able to disguise themselves as humans in order to seduce men. According to legend, if a Woodroose is shown with an upraised club, he is yet to be converted to Christianity. If the club points down, the conversion has taken place. Could it be that the little Woodroose carvings actually commemorate some local protective spirits, like tall, hairy entity that some people have experienced, glimpsed fleetingly, and yet giving the people of that corner of Suffolk in the 15th century the impression of something friendly? I don't know. Questions about the Woodroose.
Questions. I mean, I think a lot of this goes back to people like the wild man.
Aye.
Not necessarily like a Bigfoot, but I think a lot of this goes back to like the wild man who lives outside of society.
Yeah.
They say that Merlin was, based on one of those people. And I know there's some other, depictions of that, but that's what I think. That's my take on it. I think that it's more about the people that were, living in the wild, letting themselves, their hair just go and, being more what people would consider wild than civilized.
And as cautionary tales for children go, the Woodroost is pretty tame for Europe, let me tell you. We've got some nasty stories about stuff happening to kids. Phil, any thoughts?
I tend to agree with what Chris just said, and I'll elaborate just a little bit if I could. It's like before Bedlam came along. What do you do with your crazies? I mean, you extricate them from your village or what have you. They end up in the woods. Did
we lose Phil?
I think so.
I think we lost Phil. Phil? Can you hear me, Phil? Phil? I think we lost Phil.
Oh, good. That's great. That's a brilliant start. But he is here. He is here. So
yeah.
It still counts.
That's right.
I don't know what to do. Do we?
So let's just continue on, Richard. Because I mean, what can we do? We sit here and wait and pause, and no. Show must go on.
Show must go on. Oh, he's jumped back in.
I don't know. The internet just dropped for a second for no unknown reason.
Oh, okay.
Not even on. But yeah, they wear animal furs, so they're head to toe with fur, right? The animal skins that they wear, they're crazy people in the woods, just like Chris said.
Yeah.
Because they didn't really have places, or very few places, to keep people who are, insane. And obviously, they're going to be, the kids better stay away from these people because they're nuts.
Well, and it's funny you say that they had no places to keep their insane back then. I just recently watched a documentary on a woman. I can't remember the name of the documentary right now off the top of my head, but it was a woman in New Hampshire who was released from a mental institution because they deemed her fit, basically because they didn't have room. So they literally just shoved her outside. Here you go.
Yeah,
with nothing.
When I was one of the local constabularies back in the day, in the state of Oregon, they would release. It was like the revolving door with their insane people because it was the same thing. They didn't have the funds or the room to keep them.
Mm-hmm. And well, this woman, she wound up somewhere in New Hampshire, and she found this abandoned house that a couple of a brother and sister owned. Still, they didn't really do anything with it. It was their parents, I believe. And she was able to get in the house, and she started living off apples in an apple tree in the backyard. And she secluded herself in the house, and she would only go out when it was dark. She didn't want anyone to see her, and she kept a journal. And up until she died of starvation, and there were literally people across the street.
And they reported that if she held her club straight up, that she hasn't been converted yet. And if she held her club straight down.
But I mean, it just, these things are still a problem to this day. They're just different. But I think that I tend to think like what Phil was saying, that I think that's more the case than some unknown cryptid.
And just like any myth, they get larger and larger as in the retelling, right?
Yeah.
So
All fair enough points. Moving on to our next story from inforum.com. We have a little ditty from the Spirit Lake Reservation where a woman says Bigfoot has been terrorizing her home. She says it was 7 to 8 feet tall, probably about 400 to 500 pounds, said Tom Biscardi Jr. of Searching for Bigfoot Inc. He has a crew filming a documentary on the reservation and set traps for the creature of folklore. The homeowner, who asked to remain anonymous, says the creature had been banging on the walls of her trailer house and grunting at night. She says she managed to take this picture using a trail cam. That's a picture currently being displayed. A trail cam captured that image. A Lake Woman believes it to be Bigfoot. She says the creature has been in the area for decades, and the latest sighting was within the last week. The Bigfoot hunters say more sightings of the creature are reported in the summer because more people are outside to see them. All black, nose was kind of pudgy, which tells me she's seen what she actually saw, said Biscardi. Those characteristics of this creature. Come on down, we'll take our time and move on down to the camera trap area. The crew takes a quick hike down a trail to a peanut butter trap. With the flower on the ground still undisturbed and no footprints leading away, they haven't caught Bigfoot on camera. Nothing stood in our imprint area, so I'm guessing it might have been some kind of mammal that's tree-bound, Biscardi said. But that's not stopping their team, and they have a message for anyone who thinks this is a hoax. Well, anyone with a brain, obviously. You may not believe, that's okay. If you get the opportunity to see this creature, it will stick with you for the rest of your life, said Biscardi. He has traveled across the country and into Canada searching for Bigfoot and says he's headed to North Carolina and Florida next. For now, the family will keep on living on their land and waiting for the next encounter. Now that's Tom Biscardi Jr., not Senior.
That's not clone. Get me a Snapple.
Your banner is covering up the eyeball in the photo.
Yeah, right.
You can take that off. Yeah,
there it is.
There's an eye. What?
That's clearly a costume.
But
no, I think it's a bear.
I don't really see an eyeball.
Bottom center.
I see that, but that does not look like an eyeball to me. Like, it looks misplaced. Anyway, interesting. I'm not a big fan of Bigfoot's been terrorizing me. If that's the case, if this thing has been outside your house that much, I would think you'd capture something of it.
And if that is an eyeball, it's in the wrong place for a Sasquatch. I mean, it looks like it's close to the edge of the skull, which would indicate a bear.
Yeah, yeah.
There is something moving because you can actually see the striations of movement in the photo. And I think that, bears, they'll stand up on their hind legs and rock trailers and so forth. They've been known to do that.
Yes, they have. But like I said, I think you'd catch something of this thing. That's my take on it. But
yeah,
maybe I'm wrong.
Elves stole my husband's stories.
Mm.
Yeah. And it's searching for Bigfoot and Tom Biscardi Jr., so that right away.
A little bit of a red flag there.
A little bit of a red flag, indeed. I actually know Tom Biscardi Jr., he's all right. He freely admits his dad is a bit dodgy.
Yep.
And so we shall move on to our next story, which is, of course, the whole Patterson Gimlin 4K footage release thing.
The
Daily Star. Monster hunters Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin. They actually wrote Rob Gimlin in this. Believe that they captured the furry giant in Northern California, USA, way back in 1967. The footage they caught has caused fierce debate ever since, but the grainy nature of it has left it nearly impossible to fully analyze its authenticity. Now, a tech wizard has remastered the famous clip using high-definition technology, which may finally answer much-needed questions. The video shows the creature walking through the forest in new clarity, revealing muscles flexing on Bigfoot's legs and thigh. Viewers claim such detail wouldn't be seen if it was just a man wearing a Hollywood-style monkey suit. The creature's thumb appears to be in position that suggests it's not human, as it's located further up the hand. Bigfoot Al, who edited the clip, also noted on his YouTube channel how there was a very weird knee movement that no human would do. At one point, the black figure also appears to stumble, a detail that was missed in the original grainy footage. Bigfoot experts have been quick to voice their thoughts on the image. Carl Schuker, a British zoologist, cryptozoologist, and author, told the Fortean Times appreciation page on Facebook, at the time when this famous film was shot, Walt Disney Studio was at the forefront of special effects in movies, and I recall reading that a Disney spokesman claimed that even they did not have the technology back then to create anything as lifelike as the alleged Bigfoot in the film. Having said that, we can never know with absolute certainty the truth of what it depicts. However, the film is viewed, discussed, and analysed. This new video, though, will only serve to set the conspiracy flame alight once more. So there we have, ladies and gentlemen, the Patterson-Gimlin 4K footage was released. And have you had a chance to look at it?
I have.
Yeah, me too.
And
well, I hate to rehash the same thing that I've said, and I'll be talking about this on my show this week. The footage when I first saw it, the original footage, is what, you know. I can remember it scaring me, making me feel like, oh God, I go out in the woods behind my house. You know. It was eye-opening for me when I first saw that footage. It looks at that time looked very, very real to me. Upon seeing the 4K, which, I mean, I can watch it on a high definition TV. I do not have a 4K TV, but I can watch it in high definition, and the detail that's in this video is incredible. But again, a lot of it gets lost because of how it was filmed. So you get a lot of that distortion that gets kind of amplified with the 4K. But the things that I noticed, like right off the bat, and you know, people will argue this one with me, I'm sure, back and forth, is the fact that if I'm going to make a Bigfoot costume, if I'm going to hoax something, and I'm going to have somebody walk in a Bigfoot costume, I cannot, for any reason, even to make it seem more believable, can conceive of any reason to put breasts on it. And I mean, even if it's a costume that a woman is in, like, I don't see it. And I don't see all these other things that people point out, these seams, I don't see any of that. I see a very fluid walking creature.
well, no, because it stumbles.
Do you stumble?
Yeah.
All right, then. You're a creature that walks on this planet.
Easy now, easy.
I mean,
We're all friends here.
No, we are, but I mean, the fact of the matter is this creature walks across a cross frame very fluidly.
It does. It does.
And
it looks very fluid.
And you know, I don't know. From me, an uninformed, uneducated point of view, I look at this thing and I see a creature walking across the screen. Now, could I be wrong? Absolutely. But you know, that's what I see. So
That's fair enough. Phil?
Yeah, well, it looks good. I mean, let's face it. I mean, it's very clear. But as Chris has already mentioned, there are certain things there are certain aspects of the original that are lost, that are omitted, and then later filled in by 4K, by digital means. You know, it's like dino DNA. You got to take a piece of one kind of creature and stick it into the DNA to make it fit. And that's what happens when you digitalize actual footage from film. So from that aspect, yeah, Chris is right. And now that I've seen it in 4K on my computer here, I can tell you that I do not see any seams. I do not see any zipper. But also, I really don't see that muscle flexing and definition that people keep talking about. I really just don't see that.
And I think, too, that's something that kind of gets lost in the 4K. Because if you go back and you watch the other one, you can almost kind of see what that.
Yeah, but in the like the older you get, it's like the older the film or the older the video, you have the impression that that's happening. And then, of course, when you clear it up with the 4K and things get changed, a lot of things seem to disappear. But does that mean that the muscle definition disappears, or even the suggestion of that? Because I have never seen that myself, at least clearly.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, if it's a costume, it's one hell of a costume.
If it's a costume, it's great, and whoever made it should be like, I mean, at this point, like, come out, let's know who you are.
It wasn't Philip Morris, I can tell you that.
And it wasn't Bob Hieronymus.
Philip Morris should have stuck to making cigarettes. Yeah.
How come? Would you ever be tempted to do a breakdown on this, Phil?
No, I did rebuke an analysis by Thinker Thunker, in which I basically showed that his logic was incorrect, completely non-valid, because he was using trees in his own backyard to compare with a tree in 1967 in California in the Bigfoot film. And which is, just guesswork. And then he takes that tree and it cuts it up into segments and stacks them up and declares that Patty was 7 foot something, when in fact when you see who was it, Hieronymus, that was walking across the scene later on, for comparison, and he's 6'3". It was very close to his height after the comparison. So I'm thinking, well, how can you ignore this, which is factual, and then make up crap about some tree in their backyard being the same size as the tree in the Patty film?
Right.
But I did that, and I showed that that Patty was about 6'3", 6'4", somewhere in there.
And this is the thing too, Phil, and I think you'll agree with me on this. The people on both sides make wild and crazy accusations.
Oh yeah, like the lake of blood, that kind of crap.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, the attacks that come from the back and forth of the believers and non-believers on this video, it's mind blowing. Like the lengths they will go.
It was a Bigfoot slaughter. They slaughtered Bigfoot.
Because
thank you for your time.
Why would you have just honest discourse about something?
Because it's not fantastic enough.
Yeah, but why would you ever want to do a breakdown of the Patterson-Gimlin film, Phil?
No, and the reason being is because it's been done and overdone for over 50 years.
Yeah, there's no need. There's no
new evidence. Okay, if there was some new evidence that I could point to, but there isn't any. All we have is the footage.
And the thing is if you've given your opinion on this for a long time now.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's my take on it. As to why you wouldn't.
Yeah, I don't know if it's real or not. It looks good. And if it's a costume, it's a hell of a costume. And that's all I can say. Not, it's just my opinion, and I can't even say that I believe it's a Bigfoot. I can say that it could be. And that's as far as I go.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, the new 4K looks good. That's good. Good looking.
Check it out, people.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Check it out. So the next story is just more on the Patterson-Gimlin footage. Only they point out that it's come out just after the FBI documents confirmed it was called in to probe whether or not the legendary creature was actually real. So is it calling into suspect, basically, if that whole FBI thing was just drumming up publicity for the release of the Patterson-Gimlin footage. But that's all the next story was. As I said, I'm having extreme difficulty at the moment getting a hold of Bigfoot stories. Every time I click on them, it takes me to a site that says error 404. This site is blocked in your region, and it's getting quite tiresome.
Wow.
But for our final story, we go to Squatchable, I guess, parent website. And it's another encounter story. We've been running these for the last 3 weeks, and I'm going to keep running with them because I like them. So this one is from Nassau County, Florida, on the St. Mary's River, so a friend and I decided to go boating one Saturday morning. We rented a boat and headed west up to the St. Mary's River to Georgia. We traveled west about 15 miles where we went around a bend, and our motor must have hit something in the water and shut off. We drifted to the bank on the Georgia side of the river where we tried to start the boat with no success. This was about 3:30 p.m. with about 3 hours of light left as it was getting dark around 6 p.m. There was a fishing camp on the Florida side of the river with no one there, so we paddled over to that side where we settled in and built a campfire to spend the night as our phones had no service. We settled by the fire and talked and had a good time. Around 12:30 a.m. we began to hear something moving through the woods from far off. We could tell it was moving towards us because the breaking branches and snapping twigs and crunching leaves were getting louder. When it got down to the river's edge across from us, we heard a grunting and growling as well as stomping on the ground that was extremely loud and a deep bass thud. I got up and walked around to the river's edge and started shining the opposite bank. As I was shining, I could hear something moving through the brush towards me. As it got directly across from me, I saw it through the brush and could see a shoulder and head moving left straight across from me. I could see it moving from about 5 to 6 feet before it came to a tree where it stepped out from behind the tree and looked directly at me. I shined the light in its face and saw 2 red eyes and a head and right shoulder. When the light hit it in the face, it turned its head back to the direction it came from and took off back that way. It seemed mad because it started stomping and growling and breaking limbs again. It continued to raise hell for another hour and a half before it went quiet. Of course, we did not sleep that night, and the first light we got on the boat and started rowing towards home and made it about 5 miles where we picked up by the Nassau County police boat and towed for another 10.5 miles back to Scott's Landing. It was a truly amazing experience for me. My buddy, however, didn't agree with me. He said he was frozen with fear and will never return there. I myself would love to return and search for the creature. Now, I don't know who types these things up and puts them on the website, but somebody needs to get them a comprehensive guide to grammar because it's a nightmare reading those. Apart from that, though, it's another encounter story. Very nice. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's a story.
It's a story.
I mean, it's kind of not cool to just bash somebody for their experience.
No.
If you have conclusive evidence to the contrary, I mean, then that's something. But yeah, it's a story. There's many of them.
Well, I like the story. It's very reminiscent of the hiker in the Sierra Nevada that camped out along the riverbank. Same characteristics that he heard at night: the breaking of branches, the grunting, the stomping. It's almost as if this person read that account and then reported almost identically. But of course, she was with someone. The creature was across the river, but it seems to match up to other accounts that I've heard, and seems legitimate as far as her reporting of it. So, yeah, I like it. I like that story. It's a good one.
Good-o. So, yeah, those were our stories for the night. If you enjoyed the stories. So tomorrow night, the Freudian Slip, you've got Steve Coles on, haven't you? And you're going to be talking about the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Yeah, we will have the Squatch detective Steve Culls on tomorrow night. And one of the things we're going to do is talk about the 4K. We'll be talking about other things as well, but I reached out to him because he'd made a post that he was fed up with a lot of the stuff that goes on in the Bigfoot world, and so I reached out to him. I said, "Hey, it sounds like you should come on the show again." Because I haven't hit him up. He's been on the show once before, and it was years ago at this point. And I haven't bothered him since. But we had a good talk the other night, so I think it'll be a good show.
I do too.
Do like some Steve Coles. Phil, how's your new channel going?
I've had a few people show up and support me, and I think that's pretty good. On what's the name of that damn channel?
Patreon.
Para breakdown. Yeah, I haven't had a few people show up, so that's kind of nice.
I'm actually considering because I was talking with you in the hangout or this thing, the StreamYard, when we were testing it out, and you were in there, Phil. I'm considering, starting a Patreon to try and make the money to be able to pay for the StreamYard service so that I can have all of the other bells and whistles that come with it.
Yeah, you just list that as like a goal to be reached.
Mm-hmm.
People can help you reach that goal through donations.
Because all we'd have to make for that is like $20 a month, I think it is.
Right.
But it's just one of those things. I don't want to have to shell out $20 a month to be able to put up different graphics. So
yeah, and I think you got enough people that enjoy the podcast that they'd be more than happy to go there and contribute at least something, $1 or $2.
Yeah.
I was encouraged to do the Patreon thing by some of my subscribers. They thought it was a good idea that I do that, and encouraged me to do it, and they showed up, and it seems okay. I like it. Yeah.
I have been telling you for ages to do that, Chris.
Well, it's just I'd have to put out extra content, for that. So it's just something that I've got to work out and decide on. So it's in the works.
Cool.
But I am reapplying. I am reapplying for Google again. I think it's the 19th.
Good luck.
Yeah,
I'll be having coffee with Steve Alcorn.
Via con Dios to both of you.
So good luck, Phil.
Oh, yeah,
Indeed.
thank you.
Righty, so that wraps us up for this week. As I said, I don't know what's going to be happening in a comic strip next week. I will think of something. We will return next week, despite the hopes of many. It's good night from me, and it's good night from them. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.